Yes.
My name is Anna Clements, and I am here with David Quick. We are interviewing Miss Lillian Rubin. Today is August 18th, 2013. We are in Washington, D.C. at Miss Rubin's home. This interview is part of the D.C. Gardeners Oral History Project, sponsored by the Neighborhood Farm Initiative and the D.C. Humanities Council. Miss Rubin, thank you for talking with us today and for allowing us into your home.
Oh, you're very welcome. If I can provide anything you can use, it's great.
Could you start by sharing your name and address with us?
Yes. I'm Lillian Rubin. I live in Washington, D.C., 3535 Yuma Street, like in Arizona, Northwest, and that's 2008 in the district. And Yuma Street is a side street. It meets at the top, well, what I consider the top where we are, at 36th Street. It's just one house down from the corner. And from here it goes all the way down to Connecticut Avenue, interrupted barely by 15th Street, shooting off to the
35th.
35th. I'm sorry. How did I do that?
That's okay.
As you go down the hill, it's off to your left. To your right, there's just stuff. No, UGC. That's just stuff.
Yeah. Lots of stores and things.
Well, not until you get to the other side of Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
This side is mostly the things that are not everyday commercial. They're not stores as such. They're more like offices or shops, small things.
Okay.
Nothing of any size, which is just as well as far as we're concerned.
Okay. Well, thanks for the introduction to your neighborhood.
You were very welcome.
Could you start by talking about your early life and your childhood?
Oh, I grew up in New York City. I lived in Manhattan, mid-Manhattan. Went to school right through, I was going to say right through high school, but I went to Hunter College, and that's right in the middle of the city too, right down where I lived. Very convenient, right up through college. And my father had a combination delicatessen and grocery store on First Avenue in that same neighborhood for many years. And we didn't live there exactly, but we went to school around the corner from the store. So you can imagine that at lunchtime we were in the store.
Makes perfect sense.
He made the best sandwiches ever. He had the store on, as I say, First Avenue, which is just a couple of blocks off the river down there. And it's a very good neighborhood, and there are a lot of known people who have their living quarters down on the river there. And my dad used to get a lot of their business, sandwiches made to order, delivered for parties and whatever. So they were good customers. And my poor brother had to deliver the orders. He thought it was very unfair because the girls, my sister and I, my mother would not have us in the house, in the store, if she could help it.
Mm-hmm.
My brother, well, he's a boy. What could he do? So he had to take the brunt. He seems to survive very well. He's an engineer.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So did your dad grow anything to include in the sandwiches? Or did your parents garden at all when you were growing up?
No, they didn't. They didn't have the time. My father rarely closed the store before midnight. and he had to open again for breakfast. So he unfortunately didn't have time for gardening. My mother would have loved to, but she had to raise 3 kids, get them to school and back, get dinners made, and relieve my dad at the store for a few hours in the afternoon so he could get home and get a little rest. So mostly it was Pop who worked in the store. Mom, once in a very long while, in a real pinch, she would relieve him. She could do something at the counter. She could certainly sell over the counter, but it was not her favorite thing to do.
Sounds like they were both very busy.
They were. My mother was a real homemaker. She knew all the hand
Crafts.
what?
Crafts,
yes. She could sew, she could knit, she could crochet. Actually, she made her living originally as a dressmaker. And so she was A1 in her shop, and they often, if they needed to have a model made, Mom made it because she was better than the rest.
Yeah. So
and that was very fortunate for us because my sister and I both learned to sew from her, and we saved a lot of money and had a lot of very good-looking clothes because we could go out and buy the colors and fabrics we wanted to make the sort of things we wanted. So we didn't get this store-bought and stuff. It was, made in the shop.
Customized, right?
Customized, absolutely.
So were there any community gardens around New York where you grew up?
Where I grew up, not a one.
Okay.
You rarely saw a blade of grass. It was not even a blade. It was solid concrete down there.
Okay.
There were a couple of other schools not too far away, so it wasn't totally stores, but they were few and far between.
But those schools didn't have gardens either?
I don't think so. They were just off the street, and they just didn't have room.
Okay.
They just didn't have room.
So what was your first introduction to gardening?
Well, I do think when I was going to school, we used to, in class, we would get flower pots, and we would plant things in the pots and, bring them along as they grew and try to raise them to be handsome and solid plants.
Were those mostly flowers, or were there ever herbs or something edible?
No. Nobody ever thought of that. If you're going to grow something, it may as well be something to look at.
Okay. So how long have you been in D.C.?
I've been in D.C. since 1944.
Okay.
There was some kind of war, and I was a meteorologist at that time with the Weather Bureau.
Okay.
I had been a biology major and had no idea of what I was going to do with it when I graduated. But then a small war intervened.
Small war?
It was just a small war.
That would be World War II.
And so we took on some not outdoor, but off-campus kinds of things. A few plants to show that we could help out, in the world. We didn't do much, but it was a little taste. And my husband had grown up in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia actually, and they had a little backyard, and he loved planting back there, and he did a lot of it. So that was the family's first taste. We we were born and grew up in Manhattan, and we didn't know boo about raising any plants.
So you're
My husband was the
right. So
one.
that was your first like bigger introduction to gardening with your
Absolutely.
husband's
Absolutely.
like family.
Yeah,
gardening
we were awed by his knowledge of raising plants, because we knew nothing.
How did you meet him?
His father knew my father, and so they introduced us, and they decided we made a good pair. And no,
That wasn't it.
what was the story
No,
you got?
your father knew there was another guy.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
It was his one of his not
One
a
of Daddy's
customers.
friends.
Yeah, he was in the business,
Right. So
he introduced.
right, because he thought that Mommy was too short for him. So yeah, my mother's father and this other guy's father knew one another, but
Yeah.
that didn't work out. So that guy said, "Hey, Sherwin, there's a girl who's
who
a
doesn't
little
have
short
a
for
guy."
me, but do you want to meet her?"
So we met, and we went to things like a movie, stuff like that. But he seemed...
Was that all in New York? Was that
There's
during
all
college?
in Manhattan.
No, that was in D.C., Mom.
Oh, that's right.
So
So
you
you
were
had
here.
already moved to DC.
Yeah. You were in
No,
D.C.
wait a minute.
Yes,
Wait a
and
minute.
Daddy was working at the Bureau of Standards and going to GW. Yes.
He couldn't have. What would he be doing down on First Avenue in my father's store?
He wasn't in your
No,
father's
it was his
store.
father who was.
It was his father.
Yeah.
It was the other guy's father.
Yeah, actually.
You were
Yeah.
working at the Weather Bureau
Right.
and living with Mrs. Margulies. And Daddy was living... Was he... wherever he was. He was
Wherever.
working at the Bureau and going to GW.
Yeah,
Your father met the other guy's father.
that's right. Yeah.
You and Daddy met here, right? Yes.
Yes. Pretty
So
much.
how long have you been in this house?
Round figures 50 years.
Okay. And did you start gardening here as soon as you moved in?
As soon as we had the house settled, we had a lot of help.
They built it.
Wow.
Yeah. And there were friends, my husband's friends, my father's friends, a lot of people I had.
I don't think it was your father. It was some guys that a guy that my father worked with, Bob Stone.
Oh, Bob
And
Stone, sure.
He and his brothers had built houses for
For one another.
Okay.
And it was just right over at the Bureau of Standards, which is now where the embassies are in UDC.
Yeah. So we got interested because we had a lot of we bought a lot of land. We actually bought more than we thought we could handle, and we bought the corner, from the corner down to the end of our lot. We
Oh,
bought
wow.
all that, and we decided that was really a little much for us to handle.
How many acres do you know?
Well, no, it's like if you go from the corner basically to the driveway.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you'll see out back where the bushes are.
Okay.
Yeah. So we decided, if we were gonna take care of all this land, we wouldn't have time for anything else. So we just lopped off the corner part. We thought we didn't need the traffic on our doorstep. So we sold that lot and kept the rest. And it was a smart move, actually, because it did keep the traffic away, and we didn't overburden ourselves with land we didn't need and had no idea what to do with. But as it worked out, we decided to build our own house because we had all these other people who had been or were building their houses, and they could be a source for us. And since we had the hankering, why, we thought between people who knew how and people who wanted to. It's a small bridge to be crossed. So my husband was a real do-it-yourselfer. He was just a born
Well, he was an electronic engineer to start with.
well, that was a very good start. But he went way beyond that
Yeah.
because he did a lot of handwork willingly, interested. So there were a lot of things, even in the house when it was new, that he could do and did do himself. But for me, it was a whole new adventure because I had always lived in an apartment in Manhattan on the 5th floor. So it was very, very new for me. And to live in the country, well, that was, to me, this was the country.
Yeah, this is a pretty developed part of Washington, D.C. now. What was it like
Oh,
then?
not then.
Yeah.
As I say, from Connecticut Avenue up to here, there was little or nothing. There were plans for some, what do you call them? Houses all alike, you know.
But didn't you say that when you built the house, Yuma Street had just been cut through from 36?
It had just been cut through from Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, right across the street from the main part of our lot, there were the remains of an old farmhouse. Just, shards of the house, and there was the well near the street with its even the scoop for the water was still there, but the rest was all rusted and battered and so on. But it was a peek at what had been there before. It was country, so we appreciated that and kind of like savored the flavor of it. And as I say, my husband was a really handy guy. In the house, he could do almost anything in the way of fixing and making and stuff like that. And he liked working out of doors too. That was the key to the whole thing. He enjoyed this kind of thing. So we went to work and we chose one of the guys who had plans for a house. So he took us to the guy who'd drawn the plans up, and it was for a development of small houses. And the guy who drew them up said, well, look at some of the plans, because the houses aren't all the same, and you might find some that are particularly appealing to you. So we went through the plans, and we found one that was very close to what we sort of had in mind. So he drew up a series of plans, a set of plans for us, and he said, if there's anything you would like different, tell me now, and I can change it on the plans as I make them up. So we wanted a slightly bigger kitchen, and we figured bathrooms could be smaller. And we wanted a big backyard, because my husband had visions of planting, because he always loved to. He planted in his backyard in Philadelphia. He always had plants of some kind, some flowers, some...
It's the sunflowers.
Yes, oh yes. So with that, we had a solid architect's plans, and my husband knew lots of guys who were building houses for one another, so they had a lot of know-how in where to get materials, or who to go to for advice or help. And so leaning on one another, we got this house built, and the beauty of it for me was that as we were building, he would ask me, well, is there anything special you'd like in this room? And I could tell him about my dreams of what I always wanted, you know. And he said, okay, I could do that. He was a can-do guy. And so in the bedroom, he had little places and things that were made just for me to use. In the kitchen, he had all kinds of gimmicks and corners and things. He didn't do much fussing around with the living room, except we did both decide we wanted to have a fireplace, partly for the looks, and we thought maybe we could use the fireplace once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And that was about what it was. We used it once in a while. But we always liked it. I think it's a handsome part of the rooms, really, because this is really two rooms blended into one. Living
Right,
room
your dining room and living
yeah.
room.
But they go together very well.
They do.
Yeah.
So how long did it take for you to get the garden started in the back?
Well, we had to get settled inside before we
Right.
started that. But it was very shortly thereafter. My husband was really eager to get started on something. I think corn was the first thing he planted. And we bought some other plants that we saw around. And
Do you remember what other vegetables you started with?
seems to me we must have started with tomatoes because we were very keen on growing on our own tomatoes. And we had some sort of greens. Oh, the onions! Oh, the
Egyptian onions.
The Egyptian onions. One of his buddies had brought some back from, well, wouldn't be Europe, would it? Anyway, he brought back a bunch of these.
Were they
Egyptian
from
onions.
Egypt?
Well,
So from
originally,
Africa? Okay.
Originally, I think they were, but at that time they were not. But he got quite a stock of them, enough so he was giving some out to his friends in the office. But he started with those Egyptian onions, which were spring onions, basically, but very good ones, good flavor to them. So that was part of the beginning, and we did try our hands at tomato plants. We both had glorious visions of tomatoes.
Were the onions something that you couldn't have gotten here easily?
No, we had here what we called spring onions, and they were very much along that line, but with a little more vigor and taste.
Yeah.
Slightly bigger onion. Not much, but hardier, certainly. They were very, very hardy.
Since their offspring are still growing.
Yes, we're still raising those spring onions.
So your daughter Julia earlier mentioned there was a special reason your husband wanted to grow the onions before anything else. Do you remember what that was?
No?
Remember how he would plant them before he put in the tomatoes and cucumbers so the bugs would say, oh, there's nothing here but onions, and go away.
Right.
And then he'd pull them up and put in the tomatoes and cucumbers and such.
And bring the onions in for his people at the office. Something
And
from
for
the garden.
neighbors. And for us.
And for neighbors, of course.
So do you think the onions were effective at keeping the bugs away?
Somewhat. Somewhat, I do. Yeah. I think they're still a help. Don't you? But we still have some growing after all these years, which is pretty good. And they're still delicious.
How do you like to prepare them?
Well, I like them for a salad. They have just enough flavor, not too much. And they hold their shape well. And so they look good in a salad, and they taste lovely. They really raise the whole level of it. So that was the kind of the high point at that time. But he was keen on growing things. We planted practically all of our own trees, shrubs, flowers certainly. Some I raised from seed, but some we bought. And we went way out to all kinds of things we wouldn't have thought of if we were just ordinary garden people. We'd have gone to the stores and bought those. But we ventured into more extravagant things, and mostly we had pretty good luck with them because, well, it wasn't really luck. He was a good, diligent farmer. He loved it.
Here's something I don't know. One of the things we had originally, we had grapevines. We had apple trees, pear trees. How did you guys decide to put in the grapevines? I don't know.
Well, it was kind of a hankering because we thought it'd be nice to have grapes. You know, you pick them off the vine. And so we did try it. And it sort of worked, but not really well.
No, they lasted for
a couple of seasons.
More than that. I mean, I remember.
Yeah?
Yeah, they were good grapes too.
Yeah.
But then they died.
Yeah, they were not. I don't know. Maybe we didn't treat them as well as they needed to be. And the kitchen garden crops were much more rewarding than these pampered. We even tried strawberries for a while.
Those came in really well for a while.
Yeah, but they take a lot of care. And Dad didn't have the patience for that kind of plant them and let them grow.
Had he grown up growing food? I mean, you described it. What was his name?
Sherwin. Yes.
Had he?
Yeah, in his little backyard in Philadelphia. From the time he was a kid, he raised plants out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was keen on it from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
And when he had all this room to do it in, his eyes got big.
Mm-hmm. Actually, one of his buddies said that he fought in World War II and he was stationed for a chunk of time in England, sometimes in London, sometimes in the countryside, and apparently he started a garden where he was. Maybe it was on the Isle of Wight, and he was Stow in the Wall. Maybe it was in Stow.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It was in what's his name? I forget the guy's name, but he said that Daddy had planted the garden near the latrines, and the theory was that really helped it.
Good fertilizer.
How was the soil here when you started?
It needed help. There was a lot of this, I don't know what you call it, sort of going toward clay. Mm. So that part really needed help.
So how did you help it?
Well, you just dig a big hole and add a lot of good soil, which you could always buy. Sometimes you could find a place and dig some, and that was a help.
Did you find any places close by to dig some?
Not too far away. Every once in a while you'd find an excavation site, and if you look carefully you'll find a place somewhere that looks, promising. And they didn't care if you took a bucket of soil. They probably wouldn't even have noticed. So a couple of buckets is all you would want in a particular area. Mm-hmm. So we would try that. And sometimes we could get it from some of Dad's buddies who already had big places and more dirt than they knew what to do with. So they were always a help when he struck a snag. If they knew something he didn't know, or a place he could get stuff, or they were always a help.
Did many other people in the neighborhood garden?
There weren't any other people.
Okay.
We were it.
So his friends that helped you out, they lived a little further away?
Yeah.
Although when the neighbors on the other side, the Coronas.
Oh, the Coronas. Yeah.
Were they already there when you built the house? Was Alton Place there?
Yeah, the older house behind
Right.
them. Yeah, that was already
So the
there.
Coronas were there.
Yeah,
They had a garden.
Okay.
yeah. Oh, he grew grapes.
Did he?
He grew grapes and he grew something else that was
Plums. Did he grow plums?
nuts. Some kind of nuts.
Really?
Yeah,
I don't remember that.
something like, not ordinary tree nuts.
I don't know. I don't remember.
Chestnuts?
No, they
I don't
didn't.
know.
Did he grow plums? No.
He might have. He
I don't
might
know.
have. They weren't a huge success if he did.
But they also grew tomatoes and the
Smaller.
same kind of things that.
The smaller stuff.
Yeah.
But they did put a hand to some more odd stuff once in a while. But we at least had that for an object lesson in what could and couldn't be done. And of course, as I say, my husband had a real taste for it, so that kept us going. And I thought it was, to me it was a total new novelty. Although it seems to me my dad once planted some stuff in the backyard in the store. Because he had a big backyard.
In the store?
Behind the store.
Really?
Yeah, that's where we used to play.
Oh.
And there was a picket fence between us and I can't think of their name all of a sudden. The people who had the
police dog?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, the police dog. And they sold clothing. And so they would lend a hand on things sometimes. Of course, they'd been there for a while.
Do you remember what your dad grew there?
Well, not a heck of a lot, because it was fairly poor soil to start with, and didn't get a whole lot of sunshine. So, more a source of possibilities.
Do you remember where your dad bought food? Who he bought the food from that he sold in the store?
Oh no, he had regular wholesale producers
Okay.
bringing him food, all kinds from. Well, he sold everything from imported Swiss cheese, came in big wooden casks. He would take the lid off and some of the spokes so he could get to the cheese, and he would put the whole cheese in a one of these big what do you call them? One of these big things that you use to display your
display
merchandise.
case.
A display case,
Yeah.
which was refrigerated, and he'd have this big round.
Okay, you want something
Basket.
to drink? Or have some water, Mom.
Is that your water?
Yeah. So he had all this good stuff from overseas in the store, and gave us all a taste for good food.
Do you know if any of his produce came from more local farmers?
It's possible for some of the fresh produce, but not too likely, because he had to have it in, large quantities. And most local farmers were just growing small amounts for themselves and the local population.
Right.
But my husband was really gung-ho for growing things. He loved to.
So,
So what was the year that you started living in this house? That was
56?
mid-50s?
It's something like that, mid-50s.
Okay.
Yeah. And there was nothing much here. They were still, at that point, they were still building the little 2-family houses that line the street down here now. So we were fairly unique. There was one other big house across the street that they built about that time. And a few little old houses on, what's the next street over?
Alton?
Alton, yeah. But they were just small here and there houses from a few years back, not too far back.
Yeah.
And I don't remember any of them growing anything much.
you said sometimes you shared your produce with your neighbors, though?
Well, next door neighbors, we did. We still do.
Well, I mean others. Daddy would, when stuff was really coming in,
Yeah.
oh,
He was generous.
the zucchinis.
Oh, zucchini, right?
Yeah. And onions and tomatoes.
Yeah.
He would,
Yeah.
up and down the
He
street.
didn't grow cucumbers that much in those days, it seems to me.
Not as much as now.
I think when we came along is when he started getting requests for cucumbers. But we grow cucumbers and tomatoes.
And
Tomatoes and onions.
And we have the pear trees. And the blueberry bush,
right.
which the birds get most of.
We gave up on the strawberries. And
The apple trees died.
Do you know what happened to them?
lack of care.
I don't know.
I
One
don't
and
know.
then the other.
It seemed to me they never were very hardy.
Yeah. I mean, we got good
We
apples
did
for a
get
while.
it.
Wasn't one of them a wine? Was one of them a wine
I think
sap?
one
Yeah.
was a wine sap.
My father would never use any pesticides or anything. The closest he would come would be detergent in water. Although up in the garden, up here especially, he read about this somewhere when we're having problems with slugs. You take a pan. It's the only time there was ever beer in the house. Buy this big thing of the cheapest beer he could find, and you fill the pan with beer, and the slugs would climb in and get drunk and drown, and you'd come out and have this pan full of dead slugs.
Interesting.
And then you dig a hole and bury them, and so they fertilize it as well. But that really did a number on the slugs.
Do you know what attracted them?
The beer.
The
Do
beer.
you know what in it?
They like beer. Slugs like
Alcohol.
Sugar and alcohol, yeah.
Right.
beer. Slugs like beer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an old one. That's, yeah.
Yeah.
So why did he not that's before the whole organic movement. Why was that already on his mind not to use pesticides?
Because they were bad for you. Yeah, they were just bad. Yeah. He didn't want anything that would he didn't even want anything like that in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. God forbid the children should get into it. But why would he want to put chemicals on stuff when the whole point was to have something fresh?
Right. Fresh and healthy.
Yeah.
So we managed somehow without.
So, the apples would have bugs in the middle, and you'd cut them up and get rid of the bad part, and then eat some really good apple.
Yeah.
So did the children help in the garden?
Yes, when they got big enough. They didn't come along too soon after. So
it was a
took
number of
while.
years.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, they loved going out there. They were of help any time they could be. They still do.
How much of your family's food were you actually able to grow? I mean, were you a substantial amount?
Well, in the summer, as far as salad is concerned, I mean, we even grew a little bit of lettuce.
Radishes?
Radishes, yeah. So in the summer, a lot of the fresh vegetables for salad came came to the table from the garden.
Mm-hmm.
And the tomatoes and the cucumbers were, and of course the
Corn.
well, I was thinking of the onions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They were
yes.
marvelous in those salads.
Yeah.
So that stuff came mostly from the garden.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was the best in town.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the corn, Daddy used to grow Silver Queen.
What he had a particular patch. I called it the South Quarter or something.
The lower 40.
The lower 40, that was it. So he grew corn in the lower 40. I couldn't digest corn, so I liked it, but I couldn't eat it. The kids liked a little some, but he was the main corn eater. And so he'd grow a patch, and when it was about ready to be harvested, he'd let me know. I'd come into the house, put up a big kettle of water, and when I had it boiling, he'd cut it.
Mm.
And I'd bring it out, and it would go straight into the pot. So it was from the garden into the pot.
Yeah.
No fresher than that.
No fresher than that. So that was really good stuff. Everybody who liked corn looked forward to that. And it was good corn. So he was a good farmer. He was a good farmer, dedicated. So he loved to do it, and what you do for love is usually well done. So that was.
Did you all spend a good part of your free time working in the garden? It sounds like it was a lot.
Well, we always devoted some time. It was never that big that the four of us couldn't handle. Even the little ones did their share. So we didn't try to. My husband knew his limits,
Mm-hmm.
and he liked to turn out a good product. So he didn't try to go beyond his limits.
Mm-hmm.
Just to keep it to the point where we turning out good stuff, and that was where he quit. So, and he was a good judge. And he did grow some good stuff. Everything from the fruits to the, well, I almost think of the corn as fruit. It was so fresh, and we never came that close to fresh corn before in our lives. So it was great. But the things for salad, like the cucumbers and the tomatoes, I will remember those especially, and the onions. They were a real important part of the salad. But I mean, to have all the makings of a good salad right there in your backyard.
And we grew, I think we grew carrots once or twice.
Yeah.
They didn't come out.
No,
they were
they
like
did.
these little stubby things.
Yeah, hard and not very tasty.
Yeah.
You know. I don't know.
The butternut squash.
Oh,
And then there were the squawcumbers.
Squawcumbers?
We were growing the butternut squash near the cucumbers, and we got butternut squash that had skin the color of cucumbers. Inside they tasted like butternut squash and looked like it, but yeah, they were
Interesting.
They were bright green.
So they were a source of fun too, those gardens.
Yeah. So where did you get your food to eat other than your garden? Like, was there a grocery store close by?
Well, the Giant has been there, I think, forever.
Yeah. And the Safeway
Yeah.
before it
And
moved.
the farmer here didn't come till just recently, maybe within the past 10 years.
Yeah, probably more like 15 or so, but
You
yeah.
think so?
The farmer's market? Or?
Yeah.
And where is that?
He comes every Saturday morning, and he sets up on the steps
Sheridan.
of Sheridan School.
So it's just one farmer?
Yeah.
Well, actually, there's a group
Is
of
there a group?
farmers.
Yeah.
There is actually a group, and they all participate. And the women do baking.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I didn't go this past Saturday, and I don't have any chocolate chip cookies. And their chocolate chip cookies are wonderful. So, what is today?
Today's Sunday, so we can go on Tuesday.
Tuesday. We'll go. They come Tuesday afternoon
And Saturday.
and Saturday. So, if you miss Saturday, then you still have a chance on Tuesday.
So what else do you get from the farmer's market now?
Well, we would always get things like cucumbers, tomatoes, some of the berries, apples, peaches.
Sometimes lettuce.
Oh, lettuce, yeah. Yeah, and on occasion we'd get a melon.
Mm-hmm.
They had peaches.
Yeah, you said.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's and then some baked goods.
yeah.
Those cookies are important, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, they were good cookies, and they also make little fruit pies. And they're not very nice, too, but I stick with the chocolate chip cookies pretty much. With a glass of milk, there's nothing like a chocolate chip cookie. So what else do we get from them?
Sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
It is. They really
Sometimes
bring...
green beans or asparagus.
Oh, yeah, toward the fall. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they have nice fresh vegetables.
And you said that started about 15 years ago?
I think it might have been more.
It might have been more than that, yeah.
Before they were at Sheridan, they were up on. There's sort of a little island. If you go up, down 36th towards Van Ness, and then you got Reno coming in, and there's just this little sort of triangle, and he would set up there. And at some point, he moved to Sheridan School.
Yeah. Yeah.
And has it grown much over the years? You said now there's more people selling with him.
Well, not really. He sells at more places.
Okay.
Yeah.
He moves from 1 o'clock here on Saturday to some other spot for the rest of the afternoon.
But I think there are probably more people coming
There
to
are.
buy stuff.
There are other farmers coming in now with their produce. But this is right around the corner. Why would we go anywhere else? They have good stuff. So we consider ourselves very lucky. And we haven't been doing real well with our own produce.
Yeah, the cucumbers are okay. The tomatoes are nothing.
We haven't had one tomato yet. And it's very disappointing. We were sort of counting on that. We're none of us sure of why. But that's it. They've come through on the cucumbers. They've gotten some very nice cucumbers.
Yeah.
We prefer the small ones.
The picklers.
The picklers. And he gets quite a few of those, and they're very nice.
Oh, you're talking about the farmer?
Yeah.
No, but
we get
Yeah.
we get only picklers. We don't grow big ones.
Yeah.
Not if we can help it.
Do you pickle? Do you pickle them?
No.
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 We don't get enough for that.
Yeah. We not picklers.
Yeah. So there are times I'll just throw this in because it's funny. Way back from when I was growing up, when we would grow them, and we would have a lot of cucumbers. And I would go down every day. That's when I was still living at home. Go down every day looking for cucumbers. Every day. And then every once in a while, we would find a cucumber that was that big and orange. We were looking every day. Mommy would look. The whole family. And
how one could escape us like that?
not even yellow, orange.
And overnight, then it's there.
It seems like.
Yeah.
I don't know how it managed to camouflage itself.
So I don't know.
Was the inside a different color? Or the
No,
inside
it was,
was normal?
Normal, except it was just like really
old.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that. It was, that's the color that cucumbers turn after they're green.
Yeah.
Then they're yellow, and then they're orange.
Yeah.
You don't really want to eat them when they're orange.
No, no. They've lost most of their nice, tender flavor by then.
Yeah, they're kind of woody and. But yeah, I never understood how they managed to hide.
Yeah, I don't know either how they could get by and not have us see them until all of a sudden they're orange.
Yeah.
But I guess you get a couple of gray days or something, you don't look, and then all of a sudden the sun comes out and
No.
You look at it right.
Not buying it.
Not buying it. I don't know.
But it's fun, especially with the kids, to be growing a garden.
Mm-hmm.
It's, in a way, you could look at it as a learning lesson, and it's a good one, and it's a pleasant one. It's not something you gotta learn this. It's something you learn because you want to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice just from that perspective to learn something useful that's right at hand. And it's appealing. It's the real positive side of learning. And to have it in your backyard, that's nice.
Were you making connections with other people who were growing food? I mean, you sound like very ambitious gardeners.
Well, my husband did, because he knew a lot of guys at the Bureau who come from the country. And he would get a lot of information from them, and they would tell him things that he didn't know or hadn't heard. So they were a source of information and were a help in keeping our garden growing. But we never really got anything new from them. I mean, in the way of plants, but beyond some of the stuff we did. We should have learned from them how you get tomatoes going, get them moving.
We did. We used to.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's the weather or what, but all of a sudden we planted tomatoes, we planted cucumbers. We've been eating cucumbers for weeks, and we haven't seen a tomato yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw 2 little green ones.
There was a green one that was that big, and then when I tied a white string around it so I could find it, and I found the string and the tomato was gone. So I don't know if there's a critter eating green tomatoes. I don't know.
Have you had much problem with critters in the past? Rats or squirrels or deer?
Not big troubles. We're not close enough to the park.
Yeah.
Some of our neighbors have.
The Coronas trapped an opossum once or twice.
Yeah.
Wow. Recently?
No, this was like 20, 30 years ago.
Okay.
And there were wild rabbits.
Yes.
But that was probably 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a family of them in the neighborhood. That was sort of a fun thing for the kids to look for little rabbits.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a great thing to have, especially when you have kids around, because it keeps them interested in something that's very basic, and yet it's fun. And actually you could get the pleasure of eating it out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And fresh vegetables right out of the garden are super. So our kids had that pleasure. And that was good. It was good.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband loved it. He was a born farmer. He enjoyed it.
Did you ever think, I mean, it's interesting to hear you talk about what this neighborhood was like at that time, and I mean, those of us who live in any city in North America now don't realize that there used to be a much fuzzier boundary between the city and the country.
Oh, yeah.
And so how has that been to really see that change over the course of your time living here?
Well, fortunately, it's gradual, and you just change with it.
Mm-hmm.
You quit depending on your neighbors for fresh produce and go looking to commercial farmers who do come to the city and get your fresh produce that way. That's as close as you come.
Did you ever think about going and living in the country?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no. No, I'm a city girl.
Okay.
I can understand bringing the country to the city, but taking the city to the country, no. No, that's carrying it too far.
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't care for that. That calls for too many sacrifices. But raising produce is far from a thing of terrible doings to have. It's not sacrifice.
It's not a sacrifice. Yeah.
It's not
a burden.
sacrifice. It's a joy, and it's fun because watching it grow it's exciting, and especially if you have kids involved too. You sort of build off their joy, and you're glad you started the whole project. So,
were there ever any other neighborhood kids or your kids' friends that came over and helped in the garden?
No, my kids helped. But
there weren't that many kids in the neighborhood, and
that's true. They weren't,
and they didn't.
And they didn't know anything about that.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't say, hey, come over and help work in the garden. We'd go out and play.
Right. Absolutely. It was not a general thing. No, it was a sometime thing. A little bit of country in the city. We were lucky to have had that. Yeah. And it's still nice to have a farmer come on Saturdays.
To supplement what we don't grow.
Right.
Yeah.
Are there any other memories? Is there any other stuff we haven't talked about? Or any other stories that come to mind?
Have you thought of any, Jewel?
Not really. The only thing we didn't mention that we grew, I think, was the raspberries.
Oh.
That we would hardly get any. I mean, when the strawberries were growing, we would just get tons. Raspberries, literally, it would be a handful. You get one, you get one. Daddy never got any because there were barely enough for me and Mommy and Susie. Poor Daddy.
He had his corn, right?
What?
He had his corn.
Yeah, he had a quarter on the market.
So yeah, but the hardly any raspberries. But
I don't think we grew. I don't think we even tried growing any other green thing. Did we ever grow green beans?
Yeah, we grew green beans.
Yeah,
we did.
To me, I thought we had.
We did,
and that was all right.
Yeah, and then
it was just not enough for the effort, I think.
I guess, yeah, it was one of those things that we did a few times. But didn't Daddy was we grew green peppers at one point, and at one point Daddy put in some hot pepper plants only to scare away the bugs. We didn't eat the hot peppers. Yeah.
So green peppers, you mean like bell peppers?
Yeah. Didn't we? Am I making that up?
Well, it was briefly.
There were a couple of things that we would maybe put in for a season or two. They take a lot of
space, and
we didn't love them.
Really have a lot of space.
Yeah, and Yeah, so we sort of, we
Stayed.
try this or try that, but it was mostly the things that we loved most.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to get excited over a bell pepper.
Yeah, we still love the cucumbers. Cucumbers.
And we
are
would
the-
sometimes grow the little tomatoes, the cherry
the cherry
tomatoes.
tomatoes. But I never cared for
I know.
them much. I mean, you could barely get them into your mouth and barely taste them. And
I once
they were
had one
gone.
that looked like a duck.
Was that when you were a kid?
Yeah.
You found that?
At some place I have a picture of myself holding my duck tomato.
Yeah, it can be fun times like that.
Any other tips or tricks, like the beer trick? Anything else like that?
We didn't know too many.
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, to tie up the tomatoes, we would just take old sheets and rip them apart. When we cut down a
Strips.
branch from a tree, mostly, stick it in the ground or
Yeah.
whatnot.
So you used what you had?
Yeah, you don't have to go buying all this.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
We never tried any other trees, did we?
Fruit trees?
Yeah.
It was just the apple and the pear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was just that. And the pear went by the way quite a while.
No, the apples did. The pears are still here.
Are the pears still here?
Well, no, you said, the pear trees are still here.
Yeah.
You said
Yeah.
that there were a few pears on one of the trees.
Did I?
You did. I didn't look.
Oh, maybe so.
I don't know.
Maybe we can go check after
Do
this.
you guys want to see the garden?
That would be
Yeah.
lovely.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, thank you both so much for your time.
You're welcome. We hope you've been inspired.
Certainly.
So we've
Certainly.
been talking with...
It's a joy to do it, I tell you.
Yeah.
You do it and you work, and then you come out one morning and, hey, it's such excitement. There's a pear, there's a tomato, a cucumber, a green pepper, whatever. The only thing that doesn't bring cheers are the spring onions because they're going to be making it.
But you love them, right?
Oh, absolutely.
They're
good.
it's a given that they're going to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
good.
You could be sure. You plant them, they'll come up. With the others, you can never be sure.
And again, we've been talking with Miss Lillian Rubin, and her daughter Julia has graciously chimed in too. So thank you both.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I hope we've